Hi, I'm Stephanie Watson. This is Word Slingers, the show where we explore the creative writing process and give you ideas and inspiration to help you move your writing practice forward. If you've been a writer for even 5 minutes, you've heard this piece of advice. Write every single day, even if you don't feel like it. Just crank it out. Well, you know what award-winning writer Brian Malloy has to say about this time-honored, cherished advice? I'm paraphrasing. He didn't actually say that. But that's the gist of what he had to say. And I find his approach to writing both refreshing and liberating. I hope you do too. Well, so I am interested in asking people about their writing routines because it's always helpful to me to hear how other people get their work done. So do you have a writing routine?
No.
That's fine.
This is like true confessions.
Yeah.
No, I don't. My writing is a hobby. It's not a vocation. And I write when I want to write, and if I don't feel like writing, I don't write. I know I'm breaking a bunch of rules there, and we're often told you have to write every day, and when I want to write, I do have a discipline about it, and I commit hours, and I commit to word counts, and I try to turn off the internal editor and just get the words on the page. That's my first responsibility when I start writing, is to get the words on the page. And when I'm not writing, it's because I don't have an idea I'm interested in pursuing, or maybe I don't have the time, or I just don't feel like it, so I don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so when you do get in the rhythm of, is it project-based when you're holding yourself accountable to the word counts and the hours?
It's project-based. Right now I'm working on a short story collection with support from the Minnesota State Arts Board. Thank you,
awesome.
Legacy Amendment. And this is a short story collection called Under the North Star. It's my first attempt at historical fiction. It's also the first time I've written short stories for a collection. And I'm looking at different points in Minnesota history, like the U.S.-Dakota War, the Armistice Day blizzard in 1940, the grasshopper plagues, the Halloween blizzard in 91.
Oh, yeah.
So it's different points in Minnesota history that I'm examining.
That sounds great. So when is that coming out, or is it?
First I have to write it.
Okay.
I have about 5 stories done. And then I have to find someone to publish it, and then it'll be out.
Yeah.
So a few years from now, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me think of this book that I discovered last year. Just talking about, a project taking a while to come to fruition, and you don't know exactly when it's going to be done. I've had a novel that I've been working on for many years now, and it's easy to beat myself up about, like, why isn't it done already? But I just wanted to share this book, The Art of Slow Writing, by Louise DeSalvo. The title alone, I was like, click on Amazon, purchase, 2-day shipping, please. It's basically, the gist of it is like, some things take as long as they take to be created, and sometimes it's longer than you or the publishing machine would like you to take making something, but sorry, like, so what? And it's fine, and actually taking a while for something to come into being can be good. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about the speed of writing.
Well, I will tell you the most challenging of the 3 books I've written that have been published, not all have been published, was the young adult book for Scholastic, because that was written on proposal.
Okay, 12 long months.
12 long
Check
months.
it out. Minnesota Book Award winner.
Yes, thank you. The editor contacted me because he liked my debut novel, and when I say debut, the first one to be published. It wasn't the first book I wrote.
Right.
And said, run some ideas by me. So I sent him 3 different paragraph-long proposals. He bought one of them, and I had a year to write the book.
Okay.
And that was the most nerve-wracking year in my writing because that's generally not how I write. So I do set deadlines for myself, but here was a contract. I got the first half of the advance on the book, and I deposited the check, and I thought, well, that was nice. And then, oh, I have to write the book now. So it was challenging to do that, and I've learned that's not how I write. I don't want to write a proposal and sell a book, though a lot of writers like to do it that way. I'd rather write the book and then try to find a publisher for it. Yeah. So take my time with it. And I also like slow writing. I also take breaks from projects and come back to them after a while.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's actually helpful for me. I'll leave something alone for even a year. I'll come back to it and I'll say, that isn't too bad. And it gets me excited about the project again. But if I'm just trying to finish it, sometimes I just lose the energy for it. So I usually have about 3 balls in the air at any one time, even though I do take a break. So when I feel stuck with something, I go to something else just to keep the habit of writing going.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you are working on this short story collection, you have some other things?
Yeah, I'm writing my first fantasy story.
Oh, fun.
Which is fun. I wrote the first chapter of it, and it's just very different from historical fiction.
Well, so can I ask you about something? Did you go to this Story Masters workshop with Donald Moss?
I did.
Like a few years ago?
Yeah.
So I remember a moment where we were like on a break and we were all talking in the hallway, and I think I said, what are you working on? And you said to me, Nothing. And nothing. And actually, I realized recently that I'm not a writer. I'm more of a reader.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, it sounded to me like I quit. And I was like shocked because first of all, I knew the success that you had with your books before. And second of all, like, that you aren't the first person to have said that to me.
Yeah.
And then I watched them write more later, return to writing. And so I'm just curious about that because obviously you have returned to writing. You won a Minnesota State Arts Board grant. You're working on this new short story collection. And I'm a quitter too. Like you watched the first episode of Word Slingers where I made my big reveal that I quit all the time, and actually for me, it's like a strategic part of my long-term writing strategy of sometimes I really just have to walk away and legitimately say, like, I quit. It's not just a fake out. I'm actually quitting, and that's, for me, the only way back. So I'm wondering what caused you to say that or feel that way, and what was the road back for you?
Well, I remember that, and it felt good to say it. It felt good to say, you know what, I'm not writing anything right now, because I feel like writers are always under this obligation to say, well, I have a project in the works.
Yeah.
I had no project in the works, and I wasn't writing, and I really had no plans to write in the near future when we talked. So, that conversation was fun to have. It felt fun to come out of the closet and say I'm a writer who's not writing right now.
Yeah.
And also to say I love to read. I just adore reading. And there's so many wonderful books out there that I'm going to take pleasure in reading and not worry about writing for a while. I had a stack of books that I wanted to read, and I felt this obligation to write, and I thought reading is more rewarding and fulfilling to me. And there's so many wonderful authors and so many wonderful books that I'm going to read. I tell my students, if you're going to be a writer, you have to be a reader. Yeah. It's not optional. So I decided to just dedicate myself to reading, and it was a lot of fun. And any time I read someone else's work, I learn something new. So it felt good to just say I'm a reader and read, and when I wanted to, I went back to writing. But writing is just a part of who we are, and it's not how I identify myself. I'm Brian first, I'm not a writer. And it reminds me a little bit of identity politics. We feel like we have to talk about being writers, and we write, and we have this discipline, and that's not me. It might be some people, if it works for them, fine. It doesn't work for me. You know, I'm a writer, I'm also a husband, I also love dogs. You know, I have other interests. I love to teach, I love the classroom, I love reading student writing. So that's more of what I do than write.
Brian Malloy, writer, teacher, rule breaker, husband, dog lover, and boxer. That's right, he's a boxer. Watch part 2 of this interview to find out the role that boxing plays in Brian's writing practice. Did you like this video? Give it a thumbs up. Hit that like button. Share it with some friends. Post it on your Facebook wall. Leave a comment. Tweet it. Twerk it. Snapchat it. Tell your grandma about it. She's got time. She can watch.